Hello and welcome to this video. Today I'm actually going to start my very first Minecraft adventure on this channel, which will be a normal 100-day challenge in the Minecraft 1.19 version. Now I'm not gonna go into this with hardcore because I will surely die, but I'm trying to at least stay alive for as long as I can. And it looks like we spawned on a tiny island with like one birch tree in the middle of an ocean with a pillager tower right next to us, and yeah, seems really dangerous. So since I don't want any chances of drowned getting me, I just made my way over to land and definitely avoiding the pillager tower. Then it was time to do some basic Minecraft things, so getting tools. So I started by going over to the mixed forest and punch some trees and make some basic stuff. Afterwards I could go and take care of my food needs and of course also getting to some random pumpkins because they were there, and I will need pumpkins later on for villager trades because they give some pretty good trades. And I couldn't pass the sugarcane, of course, also for paper. Since I don't know which biomes we will find, I definitely will take this just to make sure that we later on can plant it. Once the sun was setting, I started to collect some dyes and made a bed with the wool I gathered beforehand and just slept. And with that, we had survived the first day in this Minecraft world. Day 2 I adventured some more, and it seems like this is purely savanna, mesa and desert from the biomes that are around here. And then I stumbled upon my first ever village in this world in the savanna. And this one will be the village that everything revolves around. This one will be my trading village, because it's a huge village, many villagers, many jobs, and a very easy terrain to work with. And there was also a fallen portal in the distance, but I will go to that later. After looting the hay bales and the food, I made my way over to search for a place to actually build my own home, and just over the hill I found the perfect spot. Actually, there's a desert right behind this, and it seems like also like tiny strip of mesa, or I guess red desert. And this just seemed perfect. The land was pretty even, so not much terraforming needed. There were lots of animals around. So I started to gather stuff for building a house. To make life a bit easier, I gathered some stone tools and set in mind that I wanted to get iron as fast as possible the next few days, if I could. And of course I still had to do a bit of landscaping, so I went ahead and shoveled a lot of dirt in the place where I wanted to build my house, and I already also set up the basic log structure. I then went and looked around the desert for a little while just to see what was around me, if there was any other village or anything, and I also gathered some sand because we will need a lot of glass for future builds. Now, I didn't find any villages close by or any desert temples, which I honestly didn't expect to find since there was a village right where we were, but I did find a mine shaft, which was right next to my place. Now, it didn't go deep, it was one of these surface mine shafts, and there wasn't a lot to explore actually. But it had one chest, which, didn't have the best of loot, but at least, you know, we have a mine shaft right here, which we can use to actually set up our mine. But before that, I wanted to start my farming, so I planted all of the sugarcane that I collected so far just around the edge. I didn't want to bother to make a farm right now, so I just basically went around the edge of the water and planted, and I actually had quite a lot that I gathered, luckily, and this will come in handy for future trades and making bookcases. And then it was just more terraforming before going to bed and ending day 2. On days 3 and 4 I continued working on the base frame of the house, and I also set up some farms in the distance. Now, I just gathered some wheat from the villages, and I also gathered some seeds from the ground when I did all the weeding. So I just set up a basic drip farm with some water and planted all the seeds I've gotten, in hopes that it will be plenty enough to feed our slaves later on, and of course all future animals. On day 5 I decided it was finally time to try and get some iron, so I started a mine in the mineshaft. How fitting. I definitely want to decorate this place a bit more later, but for these 100 days this will have to do. While mining down, I found a little cave with water with no earth inside, and going down further I then started hearing mobs involved, so I was sure that there must be a cave system somewhere around, and I was right. There was one, and right before that I actually found a little vine of lapis, which I definitely kept for later because I wasn't sure if stone could mine lapis, and I really wanted to save this because I didn't know at the time if there was any more lapis around here. Anyways, then it was time to carefully staircase down. Now I couldn't see any mobs, but that didn't mean there weren't any in the caves, and since I didn't have any torches at all, you know, being careful is better than anything, and you know, I didn't have a shield yet, so I wanted to stay safe and not die in the first 5 to 10 days. But I could already see some iron ore, which I was looking forward to. Also the shader pack I'm using are the complementary shaders, and I just love it. It's so simplistic, it still keeps the classic Minecraft feel, but it highlights stuff like these ores, and yeah, makes stuff look more vibrant, and yeah, it's a very helpful and beautiful, simple little shader pack. Anyways, I gathered some iron. I left the gold because, again, I wasn't sure if stone could mine it, and I think it can't. And after I got the iron, I basically just went around a little bit carefully, found some more, and yeah. Then I spotted it in the distance. First I heard an enderman, and then I saw a creeper, and I just ran. I ran as fast as I could up this very inconvenient not staircase, and then I had a crazy idea. Why not make this creeper the first mob I would slay? Since I got an iron axe, which I basically traded with a villager. There was a weaponsmith or toolsmith, and he had this iron axe for a couple of emeralds that I actually also gathered in the village, so that is how I got it, by the way. Yeah, I basically lured the creeper up, and then I carefully hit it, ran away and hit it again until he was defeated. And that makes it the first boss I defeated in this world, and it actually dropped some gunpowder, which we will definitely save up for later and will be really useful. After coming out of the mine, I realized I don't have any fuel sources besides wood, which is really terrible. So I went around with a boat, gathered some more sugarcane, and just looked at the general area, and I decided to get some seaweed to make some fuel blocks, basically. At this point I can only cook them up with wood, so I will like make a block and then cook up the rest of the seaweed, but this will be the fuel source I'm going for. And in the distance I could also see some magma blocks, which could mean one of two things. Either just, you know, some magma blocks, or there was a portal nearby that I didn't see yet. And yeah, there definitely was. Once the sun was setting more, I could see the outlines of a portal in the distance, which of course I had to do it. But yeah, this was actually very dangerous because there could be a lot of drones spawning, and it was about to get nighttime, so I basically quickly went in there and grabbed all the seaweed I could before going over to the portal. And yeah, I just basically wanted to be back at my place to sleep for the night, but you know, I kind of couldn't pass up on the fuel sources and of course on the portal. And I was really lucky, there were no mobs when I went over there, so I could loot it in peace. And the loot wasn't the best, but it definitely was something. And I definitely wanted to pick up the fortune pickaxe. Now, at that point I totally forgot gold can't mine diamonds, but that will be a problem for a later day. Anyways, the closer thing to me was the village, so I spent the night there, and then on day 6 I started basically smelting up all the stuff and seaweed to make some blocks so I can smelt up the iron, which I also did. Which means that I can now make basic iron tools, which will make my life so much easier because stone just breaks way too quickly and is way too annoying to work with. And I immediately put my new stuff to good use and started hacking at some trees. And while I was over there behind my house, I actually discovered the portal for the first time. Yeah, this was actually the first time I saw it, so I had to go over there, and yeah, this portal is totally fixable, so I'm going to use it later to go to the nether. So I basically just looted the chest, and since I had to wait to completely finish this portal until I got some diamonds and a diamond pick, yeah, I basically just did some like landscaping to make it look a bit more pretty and to make like a little bridge over to the land. Now another problem I had was that I wanted to put in carpet floors into my house, but the thing with carpet is you cannot place anything on top, so to basically go around that issue I wanted to get some sheep to just get some wool blocks, which also meant I need a lot of sheep because I need a lot of wool blocks. So I went into the woods and painstakingly lured them over to my place, which, you know, it wasn't that far away, but it meant I had to go over a river, and animals are painstakingly slow when it comes to going through water. But after a while I managed to get all of them home, and I also managed to make some shears and feed them and gather my first bit of wool. On day 7 I wanted to explore the mines more now that I had a shield and some basic tools and armor, and the first thing I did was collecting the lapis that I passed up on the first time I went down here, and this cave was huge and dark. Luckily I had some torches now, which meant I was a bit safer, and of course my shield. But I still had to look out for anything like creepers and skeletons, and of course zombie orcs, because yeah, apparently they like this place and they gather down here. But there was also a huge payoff, because there was a lot of iron, which, you know, I needed for the future, and I don't even have a full set of iron armor yet, so I immediately went to mining. And of course, while mining, there was a horde of zombies that appeared and decided it wanted to eat me. So I basically had to fight off my first horde, and luckily I was a bit higher up on them. I basically had the high ground, so I could slay them easily, but it was still terrifying because although I had iron armor, yeah, it's not that strong and it's not even enchanted. So I definitely took great care of not being attacked by too many mobs and just running away. And I also decided, you know, why not pick up some copper, because maybe I want to decorate something with copper later, which yeah, I totally didn't do, but you know, maybe for a future project. And me having an iron pickaxe also meant I could get gold, which I'm gladly taking for any future piglin trades. And then after getting some ore, that was when I actually had my first major case of oof. I almost died because there was a creeper sneaking up on me, which I totally didn't see. It must have spawned right behind me when I was fighting the skeleton, but luckily I survived and yeah, I managed to heal myself with some food. And on my mining trip I actually found a lot of lapis, which made me happy because that means enchanting will be easier later on. Also a lot of iron, which definitely also will be helpful. And some redstone, which I'm also gladly going to take. Once I was back home, I actually went out of the mine and discovered a chest with some torches and some blueberries, bread and a name tag, which made me super happy because it will make things a lot easier in the future if I need to name something. And I also got a carrot, which I decided to plant. Now, during my mining, the diamonds I found, I definitely want to use to make a pickaxe, because that seems the most useful thing to me right now. So that is what I made, and I also made sure to basically drop off all the ores that I collected into the chest and started smelting my iron, which at this point was a bit over 2 stacks. Back home, the first thing I of course did was feed my sheepers so I can get more wool, and then it was time to make some shears and shear them for the first time ever. And I needed to decide on the color scheme which I wanted to go for, and I decided, you know, I want to keep it light, so I'm gonna keep a part of the wool white, but I wanted an accent color, and I decided I want to use orange, which meant I need a lot of red and yellow flowers, which I also went and gathered that day. Once all my sheep were naked, I basically went around, made some carpet and placed them on the fences so I had easy access, because yeah, if I had to go in there to collect the wool, it was very annoying, because when you use Fanscape, they can escape and run away all over the place, and I didn't want that to happen. And I also placed some more carpets around the other pens, which are still empty at this point, but we will fix that later. And of course I had to finalize my iron armor with some pants. And yeah, I made some more pickaxes just for later, so when I encountered diamonds I could mine them more easily. And then it was time to cook up some meat, which I definitely will need for later. Now that I had my diamond pickaxe on day 8 to 12, I basically fixed the nether portal, and no, I'm definitely not going to go in there yet. It's way too dangerous without having at least some parts of iron armor. But you know, I wanted to take the opportunity to fix this portal right when I could, just so I wouldn't forget it and then have trouble doing this later when I want to go to the nether. And after grabbing the gold block on top of the portal, I decided to do some more landscaping around the portal, you know, making it prettier, more accessible, just making it look decent. I will probably build a more decorated portal later, but for now, for these 100 days, this will be my portal, which I will mainly use, so I at least want to have this look really nice. I also wanted to multiply that one carrot I got, so of course I had to plant it. So I started making some more farming space, and I basically also left some space for some carrots because they are the best food source, and cooked potatoes are amazing, and of course I will need them for trades later. But we will not get potatoes into much later in the game, which yeah, we come to a bit later in a couple of days. But for now it was just time to harvest my sugarcane, plant some more, and basically making the farm a bit larger. Now I don't know when I work on my house how far the spawning area would be and how far the sugarcane would grow, so I went all out and planted all the sugarcane I had and decided to basically cut down the ones that didn't grow later. And I also found some more in the desert right next to the place I was setting them up, so I added them to my farm. And next day, since I found some horse armor and stuff, I actually wanted to tame this horse. I actually found them in a village, by the way, which, yeah, you didn't see because I had this cool replay mod shot. But yeah, I had to, of course, get a horse since they were right there, and I added some armor, and then I rode it into one of the pens next to the sheeps, and yeah, hope it will just stay here and not escape later on, which it luckily didn't. And next day it was just time to shear some more sheep and get some more wool before I could finally start making the floor to my house. One of the sheep decided to escape, but yeah, that's not happening here, so I basically cut it down. Don't tell his friends, they will be very sad, but yeah, it also means I got a bit of fun. And then I got rid of the last bit of dirt that that was behind my house, just to finish up the landscaping. And of course to get some more dirt for eventual creeper holes and all that, because I know they will eventually appear. And then of course I couldn't forget my melons and my pumpkins I got. So I had to set up a little farming area for them as well, which I did on day 11. And at that point my wheat was fully grown, so I harvested it, and that left me with a lot of seeds, which I didn't really need. Now, of course I need some to get some chickens, but there was more than enough and I would get more in future harvesting sessions, so I decided to make a composter, because bone meal is very useful for planting things. And if I need trees or anything in the future for builds, this will be very handy to use to let it grow faster. And of course I also then got some chickens, because chicken is very good. Chicken lay eggs and they multiply by themselves. So I spent a while to lure it over the water and get it into my pen, just like the sheep, and with that it was finally time to build my house, or I guess continue building it, because I definitely didn't finish it on those days. So after building the framework out of logs, I started digging out the ground to make place for all the flooring I want to put in. And while I was doing that, I also smelted up some cobblestone to get some stone, and I also got some wood from trees to make a wood flooring. I basically want to part this house into some different rooms which will be separated by the color of the flooring. And I don't quite know how I want to decorate the inside as of yet, but I decided to just start placing down the floors where I think they would look good. And that was basically the rest of day 11 and 12 that I spent working on this. And of course, while I was building my house, I was ambushed by some villagers, which I could take out very easily, luckily, but it also meant that I had a bad omen effect. So since I wanted to go to the village eventually the next few days, I decided to get some milk, and while I was at it and still had some wheat left in my pockets, I decided to also lure over the cows to my place, which I finished and got in a pan on the end of day 12. And because I didn't light anything up yet, right when I wanted to go to sleep, I was attacked by some zombies and yeah, also a creeper, which I took care of, and yeah, basically was very careful to not destroy all the work I just did on my house. But after defeating him, I could finally go to rest and start day 15 with some more building. So my house still needed walls, and I wanted to go with stone bricks, so I started on that, and I also made light grey tinted windows, which I added. And then it was time to start early on a storage room. I always like to start early on these because I know how messy things can get. So I placed down a lot of chests and started sorting all of my inventory inside of them. This would mean that in the future I would have way less work to do sorting all the things inside of here, and it would be way easier to find all of my stuff. And then I decided to go on a mining trip again. I wanted some diamonds, and I went into the depths of the cave system, and yeah. I didn't really find many, sadly, but I found some next to an enormous amount of lapis and iron, and yeah, I definitely put them away safely in the chest. And then again, it was time for harvesting crops and all that, because they've grown again, and I definitely want to go and get ahead of any future food problems I could have when I want to venture out and all that. And the rest of the day was just me continuing on filling up the walls of my house. Day 16 basically was a continuation of day 15 with me just filling in the walls, placing windows and tending to my farms. as was day 17, where I finally managed to finish the basic framework of the outside structure of the house. And at that point I really was deciding on using spruce for the wood. Now, if you may have noticed, there wasn't any spruce around anywhere. There was jungle wood, there was acacia wood, there was oak and birch, but no spruce at all. So I basically had a huge adventure in front of me to find that spruce wood, and I also wanted to find some potatoes. So on day 18 I decided to prep for my trip in just sorting away all my stuff in the finished chest and grabbing all my food sources and all that stuff I need for venturing out. And then on day 19 to 23 it was finally time. Just kidding, I didn't actually go out there. I actually went back into the mines and decided I want more iron and diamonds because, yeah, I basically wanted to gear up more. And that's actually when my first death happens. Now, I found this little lake with some side arms of the cave spreading out, and I decided, yeah, I want to venture in them. There was a drown, but I didn't mind him. And while I was trying to build like a little staircase into one of the sides, I got hit by a potion. There wasn't a witch before, definitely spawned behind me, so I decided to book it and just run. And then after I regained a bit of my health, I decided, which was very stupid, yeah, I want to fight it because I wanted to continue exploring, which I couldn't with the witch. So I went close to it and died. Yeah, the next day I of course had to recover my stuff, and while I was picking it up I was shot by a skeleton. But I managed to eventually grab my stuff, and the only other weapon I had at the time was the gold sword I got from one of the portals, so I used that as a basic weapon just to protect myself, which I luckily didn't need. But yeah, that one thing I was missing, of course, was my diamond pickaxe. I couldn't find it anywhere. I think a mob may have picked it up or it despawned, but it made me super sad. So yeah, more reason to actually try to find some diamonds. But I just continued on my adventure and grabbed some more ores that I could find. On day 24 I placed down some bookshelves in the area where I want my enchantment table to be, and I just basically placed them just to mark out the area. And then it was time to feed my animals one last time before heading out to try and find some spruce and potatoes. So I spent days going around rivers and over mountains to try and find spruce. And yeah, the first day I was pretty optimistic because I found some mixed forest and I thought this wouldn't take too long. But yeah, then it finally started becoming nighttime, and I was really lucky to find a village close by because I didn't bring any bed. So I decided to sleep there the night and just loot the village and harvest all the hay beds they had stored. right across the mountains from that village I found another fallen portal and took its loot, and this one had some iron nuggies and a mending golden sword, which, yeah, unfortunately we cannot really use. And I also found parrots, so I decided to tame one, but yeah, he would disappear really quickly since I think I just moved too fast and he lost me. And on the mountain peak I actually found 2 emeralds right behind each other. I think that's a really rare find. I don't know which version of Minecraft how rare it is, but yeah, it made me super happy and I gladly picked them up. Before also looting a sunken ship, which, yeah, mediocre loot, but paper I always take, but yeah, sadly there were no potatoes in this one either. I found another ruined portal the next day and I took all of the gold from the chests and of course the gold blocks that were next to the portal, because yeah, we will need that gold in the future. And then finally, after days of exploring, I saw them in the distance. Spruce trees right in the edge of a mountain. I needed to travel really far because normally like the colder biomes don't spawn next to the warmer ones, so yeah, it took me quite a while, but I was so happy to find them and I immediately went to mine down the trees and collect the seeds. On my way back home I found another fallen portal underwater and I picked up its loot before finally making it back home. I was so happy to have found the stuff I searched for and actually made it back home. That day I just spent all day sorting the stuff into the chest, and then it was finally time to plant the spruce trees. I also picked up some bamboo for future scaffolding needs and just planted it next to my sugarcane. And then it was finally time to chop down the spruce trees and start on the roof of my house. I want this house to not necessarily be 2 stories, but there will be a slight attic which I have to light up with some torches so mobs won't spawn. But yeah, it will be a simple and flat roof made out of some stairs and slabs. And let me tell you, I was so happy to finally have access to spruce and being able to close off my house from any potential intruders that may happen. So that is what I spent the next few days doing. And then I needed to make some concrete to fill in the gap between the roof and the house, and I wanted to make some white concrete, so I just spent a day mining gravel and sand and making concrete powder before building a huge pillar up in the air so I can easily mine the finished concrete down after pouring some water. And I have to say, the view I got from this pillar was so majestic. It looked so amazing from up there and I could see everything up to far in the distance. And after pouring down a bucket of water, it was time to mine this stuff, and then I quickly went inside my house to avoid any mobs. And you know, there were a lot of them around, even on the rooftop. So I went to bed, and the next day I placed the concrete and realized I built it half a block too short. I need to raise the roof by half a block, which will be a lot of work, but yeah, that's what I did next before I was finally able to decorate the interior. So I filled up all of the gaps from the roof with some wooden beams. And then I decided I also want this house to have a lighter interior. So, you know, since we have a lot of acacia trees around, why not make the ceiling acacia? Which I did, and then I also decorated it with some lanterns to light it up and prevent any mobs from spawning. And day 36, it was just a matter of basically decorating at least the entrance of my house with some stuff. The next day I spent making some bookcases to fill in my enchantment area a little bit more, and then I decided to venture out into the village to see if there was any useful villagers. And the first thing I did was reset this farmer and of course go through all the farms to see if there's any potatoes at all, which sadly they weren't. But I picked up a lot of crops, so it wasn't really that bad. But yeah, I reset the farmer and he gave me a bread trade, so I finally had a very reliable food source other than my farms, which I know I will neglect in the future, so I picked up some bread from him. I then went and got a librarian because I wanted to trade in all the papers I've gathered, and he had infinity, but yeah, nothing interesting else. I knew I wanted to reroll more librarians in the future to get some better trades, but yeah, that had to wait a little while because there were too little villagers. So I gave the villagers some bread and just took down some of the houses to have some more acacia wood to trap the villagers in. Now I could have also cut down some trees, but the houses had the perfect like stairs and all that, and yeah, this village was too crowded anyways, and I will change it up in the future. So I just decided, you know, why not take down this first house, which I will not be using anyways since it's too small. And then I got some more iron axes, which I didn't really need, but you know, it's always good to have them, and yeah, it's always good to level up the villager despite me being able to make them myself with the iron. And then I re-rolled another librarian and I actually got looting 3, which yeah, I definitely had to save. Still no mending yet, but yeah. I fixed that the next day with another villager, and at this point I was very happy with the enchantments I got. I spent that evening feeding the cows before going to bed and having good dreams about all the things I got. Next day I went mining a little bit more and I found some diamonds, and yeah, I took out my fortune gold pickaxe and mine too and realized it didn't drop any, so yeah, I lost 2 diamonds, which yeah, super sad, but luckily enough I found some more a while later, and that means I could finally start on getting some iron tools and armor replaced with some diamond, which will be much more protective than what I have now. And now that I had enough diamonds, I made myself a pickaxe, and I also decided I need an enchantment table. So I went to my tiny lava pool and mined up some obsidian and finally made myself the best item in this game ever, the enchantment table. Very important and good item, but of course I didn't have enough bookshelves to get full level 30 enchantments, but that will be an issue for a later date. I then filled up on some bread, and yeah, I was really trying to get some potatoes at this point, so I decided to slay some zombies all night long just to see if they would drop any, because they sometimes do. But yeah, I was really unlucky. Besides getting some creepers and also collecting their gunpowder and blowing some holes into the ground, which I later had to fix. Yeah, I got really no good loot from slaying these at all. But and at this point it was obvious that I had to go and venture out again to find some potatoes. So I took my trusty horse and set off into the desert in hopes to find the golden potatoes that I was looking for and perhaps some other good loot. And I chose to go in the direction of the desert this time because last time I went the other way and I didn't really find any villagers. And you know, I really hope this desert is quite large, and desert villages have a lot of loot usually. So yeah, I really hope I can get some potatoes and of course some other things. And right behind the mountain next to my house I found my first village. This one sadly didn't have potatoes, but it had a lot of hay bales, which I just, stole plainly, because I need them more than they do. Can take care of themselves. On that same night I also found the fallen portal with, not that good of loot, but I took the horse armor for later, and I left the other stuff there. The next village I found I used to sleep in, and this one again didn't have any potatoes, but it had cats. So I got myself a couple of cats with some salmon, and the last one gave me a run. This one just didn't want to be tamed. I fed it a salmon a lot of times and it just ran all over the place. I had a hard time catching it, but eventually I did, which made me really happy. So yeah. I now tamed some cats, which I will eventually take home, and the last thing I got in this village was some books and some hay bales, because I need some bookshelves for my enchantment table, and I definitely need way more hay bales. Next thing I found again was a fallen portal. This time didn't have any chests, but I actually found the gold block, which I gladly took. And while riding along the coast that night, I actually found a warm ocean with coral, which I definitely marked the location of them because I like coral for decorating stuff. Next I found another fallen portal with some really mediocre loot, and I actually found a desert temple. And I actually will find a lot more of these, which I will basically use the same procedure for, which is just carefully staircasing my way down to not activate the trap, and then picking up all the loot inside, including the TNT, because I will definitely keep that for later when I want to go netherite mining eventually, because it will make things way easier to have that. That evening I found another village which I looted, and still no potatoes, you could have guessed it. But again I picked up the books and hay bales from this one. and I actually, yeah, found some emeralds and some bread, which I also gladly took. And then the next morning I found another temple, which, yeah, had mediocre loot besides the horse armor and some emeralds, which I also took. And right next to it was another one with, again, yeah, not the best kind of loot. I grabbed a golden apple, which sadly wasn't enchanted. I grabbed the Depth Strider book for later, and I grabbed some gunpowder, which, yeah, definitely is useful. I found some interesting trees while I was on the way to the next village, and I definitely marked down the location in case there was a large cave down there and I really want to go and get axolotls later. But again, the village didn't have anything interesting, so I just slept there and moved onward for the next day, where I found another fallen portal and took its gold. And then I found a giant village in the desert, and yeah, this one had a lot of hay bales and other good things, but again, no potatoes, which made me super sad. But yeah, I definitely didn't steal all the books and other stuff, and I definitely didn't mine it down with the pigs because I sorted out my eggs for some of the loot from one of the temples. And then it was time to give up and make my way back, and I went to the mesa biome, which was right next to my place, and I actually found a mineshaft which I explored, and I found basically the holy grail of spider spawners. 3 spawners right next to each other. Yeah, definitely screenshotted the location there. There was 3 spawners within spawning distance from each other, which, yeah, meant I would definitely come back later and make a huge spider farm. But anyways, I made my way back home on that night, and I made my cats stay by my door and went to sleep. The next day I planted all the beetroot that I got because, again, it's a thing that villagers trade emeralds for, so I decided to pick it up from the villagers. Still being sad that I didn't find any potatoes, which I, yeah, actually went out for. I then spent some time farming all of my pumpkins and all of my melons to trade, and I also found that, yeah, Fletcher started trading in my village. I put the fletching table down, but nobody took it the first few days, so I was really happy to see that there finally were enough villagers that could take jobs. And I also leveled up my farmer to finally sell me golden carrots. And the last thing I did, of course, was place down some bookshelves with the books I looted, so I could finally have enchantments level 30. And the first thing I got was my diamond pickaxe, which got efficiency and unbreaking, and my sword, which got sharpness and unbreaking, which are some pretty good enchantments. And then I made an anvil, and of course I had to add mending to all of these things just to make sure they won't break. And I also added looting free to my swords finally. The next day I spent some more time trading, and then I decided to go back into the mines, and yeah, I actually found some more diamonds that day, which made me super happy. It wasn't that many, but it was definitely enough to work with and finally make some more armor pieces. And I actually spent a long time strip mining in this area. in the end, I left the cave with 21 diamonds, and I made myself some tools and some armor. I didn't quite have enough to make myself a full set of armor with the axe I just made, but you know, helmet, leggings and boots were definitely way more than I had before. And of course that day I had to test out my new diamond axe on some of the spruce trees. And that's what I would use for prepping the spawners. So I went back to the place, which was actually not too far away, where I found the 3 spider spawners, and I went in, yeah, at night, which was, you know, not the best idea, but I somehow survived that, and I lit up all of the spawners before starting to mine out the area around them. At this point I really had no clue on how I want to connect them, so I just started by making the basic spider spawner set up for all 3 of them, so digging out all the blocks around them and all that, and placing the water sources. And this actually took me quite a while. So yeah, I definitely spent a long while these next few days mining out all the stuff around the spawners and placing blocks to make them be confined, and I also added a lot of like waterways to like try and connect them. I didn't really have a plan on how this would work now at this point though, so yeah, I just basically continued with the basic setup in mining and grabbing water and all that. And yeah, while I was connecting them I found that one was a bit like deeper down than the others, and that meant I need to get the spiders up somehow. 2 of them were basically the same height, so I hoped this would be like really easy to like connect them with some waterways. But as for the 3rd one, yeah, I needed something like a water elevator. So I placed on some signs, and then I realized I need soul sand to go up, magma blocks to go down, soul sand to go up. So yeah, it was time to go home and finally go into the nether to try and find some soul sand. And what awaited me there was nothing I would have expected. And of course I spawned in the basalt biome, which, yeah, super helpful. There's no soul sand around. I saw warp forest in the near distance, so I went and bridged over there, and yeah, again, no soul sand. So I basically spent the next 4 days venturing the nether and trying to find soul sand. And close by there was none at all. All there was some nether waste, which had sadly no soul sand at all. And then a lot of this warp forest and a lot of basalt, like a great lot of basalt, and some ghasts which tried to ambush me. But yeah, I was almost on my way to go back home when I decided I wanted to have a last effort, because sometimes when you dig for like netherite or something like that, you will find soul sand. So yeah, I basically went and dug down, and then I decided, you know, I'm just gonna tunnel and dig through all the walls in the nether until I found a biome with soul sand, which I did. So yeah, I spent a very long time digging tunnels, trying to avoid lava, bridging over huge lava lakes, making sure I'm always crouching to, really avoid the certain that I would face if I would fall. And eventually I found a crimson tree biome. And in the distance I saw a tiny little bit of soul sand. So I made my way down and was immediately ambushed by a piglin. This will be useful later when I want to trade with them, but right now I didn't have any gold equipped because I actually didn't want to spend a long time in Nether originally. So yeah, I sadly had to slay him. But anyways, after that and after taking care of this little hoglin, I went and grabbed my soul sand finally. And let me tell you, I was so happy to find that stuff. It was a very long journey at this point, and yeah, this was basically my first success after failing to find potatoes. And another great added bonus was that on my way back I actually saw a fortress in the distance, like not too far from where I found the soul sand. So yeah, I marked down the location, and that would be the fortress I would definitely go to once I needed blaze rods and all of that stuff. So that made me very happy that I found that. And yeah, it took me a very long time to actually go back through my tunnels to finally be able to go back to the overworld and continue mining on the spider farms. And by that time I actually took a break from Minecraft for a day, and when I logged on the next day I decided I didn't want to use a water elevator anymore. Instead I want to make all the spiders go down the waterway into one funnel and collect them there. So yeah, that is what I built for. And on my way up to build a staircase to the surface, I found a little dungeon thing with a zombie spawner. So I eliminated all the zombies and looted the chests, and yeah, they actually had some pretty good loot in them. And I definitely needed the buckets right at that moment for all the water stuff I had to move, so I was super happy I found them. And yeah, I definitely took all the gunpowders, the name pack and the music discs. And while slaying all of these zombies, I actually got a potato, which yeah, I didn't get on screen recording, but so one of them must have dropped a potato, so I happily picked that one up and stored that in a chest for later. And then I continued on trying to connect the waterways. And yeah, I also made sure to test all of them out and to make sure that they would flow together into one space that I can then designate as a spider slaying space. And after I made all of that, it was time to place the final essentials for spider spawner, which are chests, hoppers and trapdoors. And of course then I needed to remove all the blocks and torches from the spawner, and yeah, that is when disaster struck. So yeah, I totally forgot to place down the slabs on the top, and the water was so slow that I got stuck with the spiders inside of the water, and they were definitely faster than I was, so yeah. I managed to evade the first ambush of spiders, but there was way more than that spawning, of course, since I was next to the spawner. So while trying to finish the ceiling, I actually let more spiders spawn in, and yeah, while trying to swim away, I got stuck with all of them, and they did a lot of damage, so I had my first death. or my second death, but my first death with the spider spawners. And you know why I'm saying that later on. On my way back there, I actually found some more chests from the mineshaft, which was, by the way, really huge. It went over like 2 islands, the same mineshaft where I found the spiders, and I picked up some diamonds. I then got all my gear back because luckily all of the hoppers worked, so yeah, I could just collect it, and I finished off this part of the spider spawner. And then I went and AFK'd there for a little bit, and yeah, the spiders would get stuck on top, but that was not the problem. The problem was there was way too little spiders for 3 spawners. So yeah, I went inside and I discovered the spiders were sitting on the ceilings. They were climbing, so yeah, I decided to do a different approach, and that is make 3 separate spider spawners next to each other, so I could basically use all 3 of them and slay the spiders in one while the others would spawn. So yeah, I went in there and tried to place the hoppers and the chests, and of course I came too close to the spiders. Yeah, that was very, very dangerous. But yeah, setting that up was a total disaster, because at this point I removed all the torches from all of the spawners and I wasn't eager to go back in there. So while I was trying to set up the spawner, I got slain by a cave spider, of course. But yeah, I managed to pick up all my stuff and continue on building this. Which, yeah, this wouldn't be my last death from these spiders, I can definitely tell you that. But I pushed through and continued building all of the 3 spider spawners, and yeah, the first one, after I got killed the first time, wasn't too bad. I just needed to quickly block it up, fend off some spiders, and yeah. I needed to run a little while so I could avoid the spiders, and actually this time I made it out because there was another side arm of the mineshaft, so yeah, I made it to the surface, ate, and then went back. But then I made a huge mistake, which was, yeah, you see the like slabs that are missing on top? There was some blocks behind, so there wasn't a gap before, but in, of course, mining those blocks, I opened up the whole top, and yeah, spiders can travel through half a block gaps. So when the spiders spawned, I was happily slaying them, thinking it worked, and yeah, I got ambushed by them, and then trying to block it off and running away, I, yeah, died again. Anyways, I made my way back and fixed that issue, and then blocked off my first area of spider farm, and I decided to decorate it with terracotta, since that was the stuff that was abundant here in this biome, and I think it looks really pretty. Setting up the next farm wasn't that easy either, because I needed to basically, you know, destroy all the waterways that I set up beforehand to connect them, which meant I had to go against the current and collect all of the water, while spiders were definitely still spawning. So yeah, I made sure to remove all the water, torch it up, and then for the second one I actually made sure to block off the way to the spider spawners before placing all the chests and all the hoppers, which definitely helped a great lot. So that was how I finished the second one. But there was a huge problem with it, which I only discovered later, and that was that when I made this one, I misplaced the water a little bit, so it wouldn't work as a spider spawner like this. So yeah, as you can see, the spiders collect in the back, and they're not coming to the front. so, or at least not all of them are coming to the front, so I cannot reach them properly. So I had to go in there again eventually, and yeah. It's another disaster waiting to happen, huh? So yeah, I basically made it in there, and actually the first hit I got was from me not paying attention and drowning. Yeah. So I went back and tried again. And this time the spiders actually caught on that there was an opening, and yeah, they chased me, and what can I say, they got me. But then I actually managed to fix the water issue, and I made sure to really quickly block everything off. And I was so relieved that that was finally working. So yeah, I could finally slay some spiders and collect my stuff. But there must have been like an opening where spiders collected before I finished the spawner, so I actually had some spiders in the areas where I needed to build the pathways between the spawners, so yeah. They slayed me multiple times, and then I needed to fix the other spawner because again I misplaced some water there and from that, and yeah. After fixing that I just spent some sweet time on the spawner. And when I went over to the next spawner area I realized something. There was no spiders. I definitely make sure that the areas where I was slaying the spiders were like close enough to the other spawner so they would still like activate and spawn, but yeah, for some reason they didn't. So yeah, that was really frustrating. At that point I basically just was so fed up that I decided to block off the spawners. Now, why did I do that when I could at least use one of them? Well, the answer is actually very simple. While I was venturing back and forth between the spawner and my home after dying multiple times, I found that yeah, this Minecraft basically extends to really close to my house, and there actually was a spider spawner practically right next to my house. So I slept, and the next day I basically turned that into a singular functioning spider spawner, with yeah, keeping in the back of my head that I will definitely try to redeem myself later with the other 3 spawners eventually, since I just blocked them off and didn't actually, you know, destroy the spawners. But anyways, this time to delete the torches I actually was smart and used the water method, because, you know, water sweeps away torches. So I didn't have to go into the spawner area, and yeah, what can I say, it was way easier this time. I didn't die, and yeah, I actually had a functioning spawner very close to my place, which I immediately used to get some levels. And then I went to bed on that day. I was frankly really annoyed and exhausted from all the past days trying to get the other spider spawners to work, so yeah. I went to bed IRL that day and came back the next day to just level up and finally get enough levels to enchant my gear. I also spent some time there and decorated the place a tiny little bit, not too much. And just to show you how close this actually was to my house, here you can see my house in the very near distance. So yeah, the next day I just went in and harvested all my sugarcane and melons and pumpkins and all of that. And then it was time to finally, actually, what's that? It died. I wanted to enchant my stuff, but there was a zombie villager outside of my home, and I decided it was a good idea to lure it inside of my home and try to imprison it to heal it later, in hopes he wouldn't despawn. But of course he killed me, so I lost all my levels, like twice. And then when I went outside, a creeper exploded, so I also had to fix my house, which means I lost my levels and yeah, had to fix a huge part of my house, which luckily it didn't blow up anything important, just some stones, some windows and locks, which I could fix very, very easily, but yeah, I was still really annoyed. So yeah, the next day I went into the village and did some trading because I wanted to get a bow finally. So, you know, I leveled up the Fletcher in hopes he would get a good bow, but of course I had to trade a little bit more, and also I wanted to unlock string trades, which I did. And then I spent some time just taking care of the animals and yeah, getting some food. So yeah, I've had some animals, got some more food, and I actually also took care of the escaping animals, so don't worry, they definitely are well cared for. Then I decided I want fortune, so I bred some more villagers and lured them into a house and reset their trades before actually getting Silk Touch. I want Silk Touch for my pumpkins and more importantly my melons, which yeah, would make trading way more easily, so I couldn't pass up on that one. And the next day I did some more string trades and I looked at the bow, and yeah, the bow my Fletcher traded was OP. That was such a good bow. Yeah. And then I tried another librarian and I actually passed up on Protection 4 to get Fortune 1, which yeah, in hindsight I shouldn't have done. Anyways, I went back to my home and yeah, of course the zombie villager despawned. Who would have thought? So yeah, all that for nothing. Oh well. I actually also created another farmer in my village to have more trade option, and he took beetroot and he also takes pumpkins and melons, which yeah, is great because that's the things I want to trade for. And he also takes wheat, which yeah, I took some of the hay bales I had and traded him a lot of wheat against emeralds to basically get some more emeralds to get some more mending books and all that for my gear. Because the next thing I of course wanted to do was enchanting, for which I needed levels, so yeah, I spent some more time collecting them on the spider spawner, and also made always sure to pick up the string to trade. And the first thing I wanted to enchant was my helmet, and I got Unbreaking 3, and I also got Aqua Affinity, which yeah, I would have loved Respiration more, but that's good enough. The reason why I decided to go with my helmet was because it was almost breaking, and I didn't want to go to the hassle to get more diamonds or to get a villager to trade me. Next up were my pants, and I actually got protection on them with the Unbreaking. And then of course I had to add mending to all of my gear too. I then decided I want to get some more diamonds, so I went back into the case and yeah. Did I find any? Not really. I found some, but yeah, not many. Also, what I totally forgot to show was I enchanted my pickaxe with Fortune. Yeah. Sadly, my recording wasn't running properly, but you know how I spent all that time trying to get Fortune 1? Yeah, my pickaxe got Fortune on it when I enchanted it, so that was useless. Also, when I finished enchanting my diamond gear so far, I decided it was time to try and slay an iron golem, but not the usual careful way. No, I went in there, and yeah, that didn't go well. So I collected my stuff, took my bow, and basically avenged myself. Yeah, all that just to play around a little bit and to try how strong my gear is. anyways, I made sure to also, in between going to my house and sleeping and stuff, to collect some more meat and actually to cook it for later adventures, because I was sure I would need it eventually, especially later when I want to slay the Ender Dragon. I then wanted to go back to the spider spawner, and I actually found there was a wandering trader there, probably because I hung out there a lot, so yeah. And he had some pretty decent stuff, so I picked up some dark blue dye, and I actually picked 1 bucket of tropical fish, yeah. Not too much, because I didn't have many emeralds left. I would have loved 2, so I could have, if I eventually pick up axolotl, bred them, but you know, that's just life. Anyways, at this point it was already very late into the game, and I decided it was finally time to get some blaze rod. So I made my way over to the Nether, and the first thing I of course did was trade with the piglin that was totally not friends with the one I killed last time I was here. So yeah, I lured that guy into a hole and traded him a lot of gold, but I also almost fell into lava there going back, so I patched that up. But yeah, I let him trade all my gold for quite a while, and in the end I hoped for pearls or potions that give me fire res, and I got none of that. I got some soul speed boots, and I got some water potions, but yeah. Nothing really too useful, so frustrated I made my way to the fortress anyways. I thought, you know, I could somehow deal with blazes without fire res, which totally worked out for me luckily. So yeah, I went through the fortress, slayed my first blaze, and of course I gathered netherwort, because that's the thing I need for potion making and all of that stuff. And yeah, the loot wasn't the greatest, but at least I found a blaze spawner after wrenching out. Actually, this fortress was kind of covered in netherrack, so it was really hard to maneuver and find everything. So yeah, in the end, when I found the blaze spawner, I was super happy, and it was actually very easy to like block it off and make sure that the blazes were like easy to slay, and in the end I got 36 blaze rods and I made my way out of there. I didn't have any pearls at that point, so I also spent some time angering and slaying endermen in the forest, which I did by basically just building like a protective area and just slaying them. That meant I had some of the basic stuff I would need to go to the end later. Now it was just a case of enchanting the rest of my tools, and I finally put Silk Touch and Mending on my axe. This made me so happy. I of course had to test it out, but I also put some stuff in my brewing stand to prepare for slow falling potions. And let me tell you, using Silk Touch on these was the best thing ever. It was the best feeling ever to know I could immediately trade them and didn't have to craft them into melons. I was so happy. This was one of the enchantments I wanted the most, and to finally get it, even though it was almost the end of our journey, definitely was a really good thing. I also made a lot of paper, and I made sure to keep some in my inventory to make some fireworks later on, and I also made some more books, and of course I kept some paper to trade. Yeah, the next issue I realized I had was you need phantom membranes for making potions of slow falling. So yeah, the next few days I spent my time not sleeping, always looking outside. I also spent some time trading with the villagers and all of that stuff to make sure I could get the best gear possible. And I also bought some iron axes. I know I really don't need them anymore, but I wanted to level up the weaponsmith a little bit. So yeah, I just basically shoved them into a chest at the village and yeah, basically forgot about them. And then I spent some more time farming and all that, since really that was the only thing I could do. Of course, not forgetting to finally harvest my first batch of potatoes. I basically grew them by using the bone meal I got from composting seeds, and yeah, it was the greatest thing I could do. I then spent some more time at the spider spawner because I didn't enchant my boots yet, so that was my next goal. And afterwards I basically put the last piece of equipment on my enchantment table, and I finally had not quite fully enchanted gear, but gear that was enchanted enough for me to fight the Ender Dragon. And I almost slept that night, but luckily I didn't forget, because that would have been a lot more waiting. And I also combined 2 bows that I bought from the Fletcher. And then the next few days it was basically a repeat of those things. I traded a lot with villagers, and I spent the nights looking out for phantoms. And I spent some time actually also slaying some mobs. Then one night suddenly a dog actually aided me in fighting some mobs, and yeah, he sadly died, so I set my mind on actually getting the dog. I knew I'd seen some in the woods behind my house when I went to grab some wood later, but I couldn't find any that night, and actually the only one I found immediately got slain by a skeleton. But I was lucky, because 2 nights from that night, I had to wait 2 more nights, phantoms actually spawned, so I got my membranes finally, which meant I could finally make potions of slow falling, which I made a lot of. And I also made sure to make some more glass bottles on the way, because you kind of need them to pick up Dragon's Breath, and that's one of the sure ways to keep yourself from dying from Dragon's Breath if it spawns directly around you and you cannot escape it quick enough. And then it was finally time to venture out to find the stronghold. I now had everything I needed. I had food, I had gear, I had weapons, and I had Eyes of Ender that I could throw. And while I was venturing there, I missed a hole and fell on my very first day. So I made sure to sleep at home and actually pick up my horse. And then I luckily made it back in time for my gear to not despawn, so I equipped it, and oh my goodness, my heart was racing so hard. After I lost my gear, I was so afraid of losing all of my progress, because I wanted to really slay the Ender Dragon before day 100. So I made sure to pick up all of my stuff and all of my potions, and made sure to avoid all the zombies before venturing on with my trusty steed. And we ventured over mountains and through rivers. And finally, a day later, the eye pointed down. So I went down into the cave system, and I actually looked around a little bit in hopes the stronghold would be exposed, but it wasn't at all. So I made my way back to where the eye actually went down, and I dug a tunnel straight down. Not quite straight down, because I didn't want to risk a huge fall and dying here at the end of my journey. So instead, after a couple of blocks, after I realized that was really dangerous, I started digging down 2 blocks at a time. And I actually found the stronghold in no time. I actually perfectly went digging on top of the staircase to the entrance of the stronghold, and this stronghold was huge. Actually, this is the first time seeing a stronghold like this in the newer Minecraft version, so I was a bit surprised on its layout. I know the older strongholds from 1.18 and stuff, but this one looked a bit special and actually really awesome. But it took a couple days to explore this, and I went around and around, and I couldn't find any portal room at all. And that made me actually really worried, because I found some libraries and stuff, but part of the stronghold seems to be cut off by the cave system, so I was worried that there was like a room on the other side of a cave system that I missed. So I went through all of the rooms again and again, made sure to look through the caves, block off all the rooms that I already looked into. And yeah, in the end, I actually found an amethyst, which was amazing because I love these blocks and I would definitely mark the location for future explorations. And I even made sure to look for hidden rooms. And would you know it, I went through all that trouble just to make a final attempt next to the entrance staircase, because there was like a larger wall and I thought maybe it was behind there. I was almost ready to give up when I finally found a secret area. It was right there all along. So yeah, I spent days venturing through the stronghold and totally missing the thing that was obviously right beside me. Yeah, I was really happy to have finally found it. So I set up my bed and a chest, and I also wanted to make a nether portal. I know I didn't activate it then because I didn't have any flint and steel at all, but I wanted to make from for the future to like make a connection to this portal. And yeah, that was the last thing I did before I jumped into the end. And as you might notice, I didn't activate the bed. I placed it down, I didn't click on it. That would come and haunt me later. But first it was time for an epic fight with the Ender Dragon. And I was so lucky because the spawn was actually right outside of the island, so I didn't have a lot to bridge here, and it wasn't too dangerous getting up in there. The fight in and of itself actually wasn't too bad either. I always made sure to drink my slow falling potion every time, even when I wasn't pilgriming up to one of the crystals to destroy it, because, you know, the dragon can fling you up in the air. And I was so glad for that, because they definitely saved me multiple times. And yeah, then began the long time of actually destroying the crystals and trying to get the Ender Dragon to purge. And she was stubborn. She rarely wanted to purge, and at some point, sadly, I ran out of arrows. I brought 2 stacks, and that wasn't enough. And yeah, remember that first trading villager that I made into a librarian that had infinity? Yeah, I totally forgot about that, so I didn't put infinity on the bow. And I didn't put mending on it yet, so that would be a future issue for me, but yeah. I spent a long time waiting for the dragon to purge until I could finally damage it. So I slowly worked on her health bar, and then finally, after some time, she purged for her last time, and I actually managed to. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I finished to slay the Ender Dragon before the final day 100. This made me really happy. This was actually my first time that I managed to slay her in 100 days, because in the worlds I normally play for myself, it takes me way longer because I gear up way more and all that, so actually slaying her without dying was the best thing. And I made sure to pick up the Dragon Egg too, though I didn't actually pick it up yet. I wanted to pick that up after I got an Elytra, because I wanted to make sure that I don't die in the end and lose the Dragon Egg. So yeah, I ventured out, and actually very close to where the end portal was, there was an island with a ship. So I went over there, bridged over, and entered the ship to finally get my Elytra. At this point it was actually day 99, so I was positive I would make it to day 100. But then something really unfortunate happened. I made sure to loot all the stuff in the chest, equip my fireworks, equip the Elytra, pick up all the diamonds and useful gear that was there. And yeah. I then decided, let's fly over to the end structure and actually do that. And yeah, I went in, I actually did a loop, but I wasn't quick enough in like slowing my fall down, so I died. And yeah, as you noticed, I didn't place down my bed, so I had to make the way over per foot because my horse was stuck there too. So yeah, I went by foot and I picked up some wood on the way to like have at least one pickaxe, and of course I forgot to bring myself a sword. So yeah, to get a pearl to get to the other end islands, I had to slay an enderman per hand. This took ages, and all this time I was so nervous that my stuff would despawn because I wasn't sure if I was like out of spawn radius or not. And yeah, it was definitely taking longer than the 5 minutes stuff takes to despawn. So yeah, I was so damn nervous, but I finally managed to get the pearl and go back to the outer end islands where of course the first island I didn't bridge over, I threw a pearl, so I had to do that in a very speedy fashion. But I managed to go and get my stuff back in the end. Actually, I was so lucky because I bridged over the other gaps because they were too far, so I just had to, you know, run over and yeah, my stuff is stuck on one of the structures arms, so I went in through the bottom, and actually I found some of my stuff on the floor, like this chorus fruit and a little bit of meat, which is really lucky because yeah, food and some chorus fruit to be safe. So yeah, I just completely disregarded all the shulkers and ran inside, and then of course I failed the parkouring multiple times because I was way too nervous if some of my stuff would despawn. So yeah, it took me like 7 or 8 tries, but yeah, I eventually finally managed to get up there and get my stuff. And actually it was all thanks to a shulker that I got my stuff so easily, because I was not rocketed, and that not rocket brought me to the rooftop way faster than I could have ever dug up there, since, you know, I only have a wood pick. So I managed to pick up some of my stuff, and of course then my luck ran out a bit because yeah, they kept attacking me, and in the end when I was really high up I actually threw a pearl to gather the rest of my stuff and to actually prevent myself from getting full damage. And yeah, luckily I managed to collect all of my armor and the elytra, and everything was still there. I didn't lose a single thing, which made me super happy. But yeah, I could finally now loot the end city, and I did. I slain a lot of shulkers to make sure I get some shulker shells for making shulker chests, obviously, because they're one of the most useful items in the game to keep your inventory clear. And in the end I actually got a quite decent amount of them. The only thing I didn't get was any other loot from the end city, because there wasn't any chest. This city was huge and there wasn't any chests with gear at all. So yeah, I was a bit disappointed, but you know, I got some gear from the ship and I now had an elytra, so I could venture out more later to try and find more end cities. But for now, it was actually the dawn of day 101, so I made my way back. Made sure I grabbed the dragon egg, and I also made sure to go back and grab the horse, because I couldn't leave it there. I wanted to take my trusty steed that accompanied me all this time home. And then finally, after venturing for quite a while, having some problems with some spiders, fighting the ender dragon, actually encountering another wandering trader with really not good traits, I made it home. And yes, it wasn't quite day 100, it was done in 101 days, but I managed all of that, and I was pretty proud of myself. So I made sure to actually put my horse in its designated area, or at least designated for now. And I took one final look at my house and all my surrounding area and all the things I built. And I have to say, these 100 days were a mixed bag of fun adventures, drama, a lot of death, and great accomplishments. And I maybe plan on continuing these adventures later, maybe to day 200, because there's a lot more things to do and a lot more things to build. But for now, I was finally happily home and I just wanted to take a rest. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this little series, and let me know in the comments down below any ideas of future builds that I should do. Now, I'm definitely going to make 200 days out of this and maybe more. And I hope I see you back next time.